Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into a really fascinating book, Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money.
Yeah, it's great. And it's not your typical finance book, is it?
No, definitely not. Forget dense formulas or complex jargon. Housel takes us on a journey into, well, us, human behavior, and our whole relationship with money.
Exactly. He promises it'll completely change how you think about saving, spending, risk, even happiness.
And that's our mission today. To explore why, as he puts it, the smartest choice on paper isn't always the smartest one in real life. We want to get under the hood, understand those subtle forces shaping our financial lives.
And that's really the key, I think. The book is, it's about behavior, about people, about you. It makes these big ideas really accessible, doesn't it?
Totally. Through simple stories, real-life examples anyone can grasp.
Right. And it focuses on mastering just a few key habits and, crucially, sticking to them. That's often the hardest part.
So our conversation today hopefully will help you see money in a completely new light.
Not just as, a number in your bank account, but as a tool for freedom, for peace of mind, for living life on your own terms.
Okay, let's dive in. First, big idea. Have you ever looked at someone else's money habits and just thought, what are they thinking?
Oh, all the time. Like buying lottery tickets every single week when they're struggling, or maybe refusing to invest even when they have the means.
It seems completely crazy or illogical.
It does from the outside.
Yeah.
But Housel's core insight here is powerful. No one's crazy.
Okay. Unpack that a bit.
Well, their financial decisions, however baffling to us, they make perfect sense to them. They're rooted in their unique life experiences, their feelings, the world they grew up in. Not just cold, hard facts.
So context is everything.
Absolutely. Think about it. Imagine two kids. One grows up during a nasty recession, maybe sees their parents lose their home, stressed about bills constantly.
Okay.
The other grows up during an economic boom. Stocks are soaring. Family takes nice vacations every summer.
Right. Completely different vibes.
Do you think those two people will see money the same way? Or risk? Of course not. One learns deep down to protect, to be cautious. The other might learn to take chances, to expect growth.
And those early lessons stick, don't they? Even if we learn financial theory later.
They really do. And that emotional weight, Housel emphasizes this. You can read all the finance books in the world, but if you've never felt that gut-wrenching panic of maybe not making rent, you just won't fully grasp what that kind of money stress feels like. Emotions, he says, they beat data pretty much every time.
He even mentions the year you were born, or rather, the economy when you came of age.
Yeah, turning 20 in the booming 90s with stocks going nuts, you'd probably feel pretty bullish about investing.
Versus turning 20 in the, say, stagnant 70s with crazy inflation.
Exactly. You'd likely be way more cautious, maybe more drawn to safer assets, or just holding cash. It's not about being smarter, it's about what the world taught you about money.
So back to the lottery example. It's not just like irrational gambling for everyone.
For some, maybe not. Housel suggests that for someone with very limited income and maybe few perceived opportunities, that lottery ticket isn't just a gamble. It's buying a dream.
A moment of hope.
Yeah, exactly. A tiny sliver of possibility that things could be different, even if the odds are astronomical. When you see it through that lens, well, the crazy decision suddenly feels a lot more human, more understandable.
Wow. So this whole concept, it's about shifting from judgment to understanding, both for others and maybe ourselves.
Precisely. Instead of thinking, why are they so irresponsible? Or even, why did I make that dumb mistake back then? Housel encourages asking different questions. Like, what story are they telling themselves about money? Or for yourself, what story was I believing back then that led to that choice? It's about the narrative, the internal logic.
Okay, so our personal history shapes us. But what about forces outside our control? We often think success is all skill, failure is all mistakes.
Right, but Housel argues that's way too simplistic. He introduces these unseen hands, luck and risk.
Invisible forces. Sounds intriguing.
They really are. He suggests they often pull more strings in our financial lives than our intelligence or effort alone. The classic example he uses is Bill Gates.
Obviously brilliant, worked incredibly hard.
Undeniably. But Housel points to this huge slice of luck. Gates's high school, Lakeside, had a cutting-edge computer terminal way back in the 1960s.
Wow, that early.
Yeah, almost unheard of. A 1 in a million kind of head start, letting him and his friends dive deep into coding years before almost anyone else their age. Even Gates admits how pivotal that sheer luck was.
And then there's the flip side, the risk part. His friend, Kent Evans.
Such a tragic story. Kent was Gates's best friend, apparently just as bright, just as passionate about computers. They dreamed of starting a company together.
Right.
But Kent died in a mountain climbing accident before graduating high school. Same drive, same potential maybe, but one random awful event.
Yeah.
A totally different outcome. Pure, devastating risk.
So ignoring these forces, that's dangerous.
Housel thinks so. It can lead to false confidence when we win, thinking it was all us, and unfair judgment when others fail. You can't just copy someone's blueprint for success without factoring in the luck they might have had.
He contrasts that janitor, Ronald Reed, with the high-flying executive, right?
Yeah. Richard Fusone, wealthy Merrill Lynch exec, got totally wiped out in 2008 because he was massively leveraged, exposed to huge risk.
While Ronald Reed,
A gas station attendant and janitor, quietly saved and invested small amounts consistently his whole life, died with like $8 million.
incredible. It wasn't about who was smarter on paper.
Not at all. It was about vastly different approaches to risk and consistency. Housel has this great quote, something like, "Success is a lousy teacher. It seduces smart people into thinking they can't lose.
So stay humble when you win.
And don't let failure break your spirit because it might not have been entirely your fault."
That's a big takeaway. Be careful judging success, maybe even more careful judging failure. What looks like smarts could just be luck.
And what looks like stupidity might just be, well, bad luck hitting at the wrong time.
Okay, let's talk about another human tendency, that feeling of more. You achieve a goal, you feel good for maybe a second, but then your mind races. Is this enough? Enough to stop worrying? Enough to finally feel happy?
Oh, yeah. The goalposts just keep moving, don't they? It's relentless.
Housel calls this the dangerous trap of always chasing more. What drives it?
A lot of it is social comparison. We're constantly looking around, see what others have. He uses the example of Rajat Gupta.
Former head of McKinsey, right? Super successful.
Hugely. Had something like $100 million. But he was running in circles with billionaires, people with way more. And apparently he still felt small.
Wow. Even with $100 million.
Yeah. And that feeling, that need for more, ultimately led him to insider trading. Lost everything, career, reputation, freedom, all for more than he could ever possibly need.
And Bernie Madoff fits this pattern too.
Absolutely. Already ran a successful, legitimate business. Made millions. But it wasn't enough. So he built the Ponzi scheme. Again, risking everything he had and needed for something he didn't need.
It seems so illogical, but clearly powerful.
Housel puts it very simply. To risk what you have and need for what you don't have and don't need is foolish. But that social comparison engine is so powerful.
Like your $100 case salary feels okay until your coworker gets $200.
And then they feel inadequate compared to the person making $1 million. It's a ladder with no top rung. You're always looking up, feeling like you're missing out.
He has an analogy for this too, doesn't he? The man in the car paradox.
Yes. It's brilliant. Think about when you see someone driving a really expensive, flashy car.
Yeah.
A Ferrari, maybe?
Okay.
What's your first thought? Housel argues most people aren't thinking, wow, look at that driver. They must be so cool, so successful, so admirable.
Probably not. What are they thinking?
They're usually thinking, wow, I wish I could drive that car. Or if I had that car, people would think I'm cool.
Ah, so you're admiring the car, not the person.
Exactly. You're projecting yourself into the driver's seat.
Yeah.
We buy these things thinking they'll bring us admiration, but other people are mostly just thinking about themselves and what they want. We overestimate how much others notice or care about our possessions.
So the real work is defining your own sense of enough, breaking free from that comparison game.
That's the core message. Focus less on displaying wealth and more on, being someone people genuinely respect for who you are, not what you own. Kindness, humility, character, that's what truly earns admiration.
Okay, so if chasing more is a trap, what's the real engine of wealth building? Is it some secret strategy? A huge paycheck?
Housel says it's actually something much simpler, almost boring. It's the power of compounding.
Compounding, we hear about it, but maybe don't fully grasp its power.
He calls it confounding compounding because its effects can seem almost unbelievable over long periods. Look at Warren Buffett.
The classic example.
Right. Something like 90% or more of his net worth was accumulated after his 65th birthday.
Wow. Not because he got smarter later in life.
Nope. It was simply because the money he invested decades earlier had time to grow and grow and grow. His real superpower wasn't just picking stocks. It was his incredible time horizon, his patience.
It's like that snowball analogy, right?
Exactly. Starts small, barely noticeable, but as it rolls down a long hill, it picks up more snow, gets bigger faster, gains momentum. eventually becoming this massive, unstoppable force.
But the challenge is patience.
Huge challenge. We're often wired for quick wins, instant gratification. Compounding is the opposite. It rewards consistency over decades. Many people just give up too early before the real magic starts.
That ties really nicely into another concept, save money, just because.
Yeah, this one really resonated with me. We're usually taught save for a down payment, save for retirement, save for a car, specific goals.
Which makes sense.
It does, but Housel argues that maybe the smartest reason to save is with no specific goal at all, just to save.
Why? What's the benefit of saving aimlessly?
It's not aimless, exactly. He says the purpose isn't always to spend it later. Sometimes the purpose of saving is simply to give yourself options, flexibility, control.
Like a buffer.
Like a buffer or a safety net. You build it not because you plan to fall, but because life inevitably throws curveballs, unexpected emergencies, surprise opportunities.
And if you have those savings,
you're ready. You don't have to panic, sell investments at a bad time. You don't have to take on high-interest debt. You don't have to miss out on a potentially life-changing opportunity just because you're strapped for cash.
It gives you breathing room.
Loads of it. Control over how you react to things. Control over maybe walking away from a bad job situation or pursuing a passion project. It's this quiet confidence, he suggests, that's a deeper form of wealth than just the numbers.
So the takeaway is twofold. Trust the slow, steady power of compounding. Start early if you can, stay consistent, and build savings just for the sake of having options and control. That's your real safety net.
Exactly. Which leads into another critical distinction Housel makes.
What's that?
The difference between getting rich and staying rich. They sound similar, but he argues they require totally different skills.
Interesting. How so?
Getting rich often involves taking risks, being optimistic, maybe making some bold, aggressive moves. It's kind of an offensive game. You need ambition, guts.
Okay, makes sense.
But staying rich, that's all about defense. It's about survival, avoiding catastrophic losses. It requires humility, caution, recognizing that things can go wrong. It's about not losing what you've already built.
Like switching strategies in poker once you have a big stack.
Perfect analogy. You play differently when you have a lot to lose. He talks about Jesse Livermore, the legendary trader, made a fortune, especially during the 1929 crash.
But didn't he lose it all?
Multiple times, because he kept making bigger and bigger, riskier and riskier bets. He never shifted gears into defense mode, into protecting his wealth.
So what traits help you stay wealthy?
Housel highlights a few. Frugality, not letting lifestyle creep consume everything. Humility, knowing you're not invincible. That luck played a role. And a healthy dose of fear or paranoia, not crippling fear, but enough to avoid reckless decisions. Protecting your wealth is like protecting your home base.
Okay, so defense is key for staying rich. What about those big wins, though? The things that really move the needle?
That ties into what he calls tail events. This is such a cool concept.
Tail events, like the extremes.
Exactly. The basic idea is that in many areas, investing, business, even life, most things don't really work out spectacularly. Lots of ventures fail, investments underperform, ideas fizzle out.
Sounds a bit depressing.
Well, wait. But every now and then, something hits big, really big, a tail event. And that one massive success can often outweigh all the previous failures combined.
Like Apple and the iPhone.
Perfect example. Apple launched hundreds of products over the years, many forgotten, but the iPhone, that was a tail event that completely changed everything for them. Its success dwarfed everything else.
And this applies personally, too.
Absolutely. Think about your own life. Maybe one connection leads to your dream job. One investment takes off. One decision changes your path. You don't need everything to work out. You just need a few key things to work out really well.
He mentions Michael Jordan, doesn't he? About missing shots.
Yeah, it's a great illustration. Jordan missed thousands of shots, lost hundreds of games, missed clutch shots, plenty of times. But he's a legend because he stayed in the game, kept playing long enough for his incredible talent, his tail events to shine through and define his career.
Staying in the game, that sounds like resilience. And maybe planning for things not to go perfectly.
Exactly, which leads directly to the importance of room for error.
Building in slack.
Precisely. No plan survives contact with reality perfectly. Stuff goes wrong, forecasts are off, life throws curveballs. So Housel argues you must build in a buffer. Don't plan things down to the last penny or the last minute.
Like charging your phone before it hits 1%.
That's a great analogy he uses. You charge it at 20% or 30% because you know you might need it unexpectedly. You need that margin of safety. That's your financial battery life.
It's not being pessimistic, it's being realistic.
Exactly. It's asking, what if I'm wrong? What if this takes longer? What if costs are higher? Do I have a cushion? Or am I walking a tightrope with no net?
And that cushion could be an emergency fund or living below your means.
Or diversification, or having insurance, or even just realistic expectations. It's the unsexy but absolutely critical foundation of any strong financial plan.
So summing up this part, master both offense, getting rich, and defense, staying rich. Play the long game to allow for tail events, and always, always build in room for error.
Right. And that connects to another subtle but really important idea about decision-making.
Which is?
The difference between being purely rational and being reasonable.
Okay, what's the distinction there? They sound similar.
They do, but Housel draws a key difference. Being rational in a financial context usually means making the decision that, on paper, mathematically maximizes your returns. The textbook answer.
Got it. And reasonable.
Reasonable is about doing what works for you, what fits your emotions, your goals, what helps you sleep at night, even if it's not the absolute optimal mathematical choice.
Ah, like the example of paying off a mortgage early.
Exactly. Your mortgage rate might be super low, say 3%.
Yeah.
Mathematically, you're better off investing extra cash, aiming for maybe 7% or 8% market return. That's the rational move.
But
if having that mortgage hanging over your head causes you stress, if being completely debt-free brings you immense peace of mind, paying it off early is perfectly reasonable. It meets your emotional needs.
that makes so much sense. The best plan isn't the one with the highest potential return.
It's the one you can actually stick with for the long haul. A good enough plan that you feel comfortable with and can consistently follow is far superior to a theoretically perfect plan that stresses you out or that you abandon when things get rocky.
That's really liberating. Prioritize sleeping well over squeezing out every last percentage point.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Find the approach that you can sustain, which leads to one more crucial point about human nature. We change.
Oh, definitely. Who I was 10 years ago feels like a different person.
Right. But we often make major, long-term financial plans based on who we are right now, assuming our future selves will want the same things.
Housel calls this the end of history illusion, doesn't he?
Yeah. We can look back and see how much we've changed, but we tend to think that the person we are today is the finished product, that we won't change much going forward.
So the 25-year-old planning for retirement
Might meticulously save for a giant beach house and a sports car for their 55-year-old self. But when they actually get to 55, they might find they crave totally different things.
like time with grandkids or a quiet cabin or meaningful work.
Exactly. Things they couldn't even conceive of wanting 30 years earlier. So the advice is, build flexibility into your long-term plans.
Don't lock yourself in too rigidly.
Right. Acknowledge that your goals, your desires, your priorities will likely change. Leave room to adapt, to shift directions, to pivot as you evolve. As Housel puts it, the person you'll be in 10 or 20 years is basically a stranger you haven't met yet.
Wow. So be reasonable, prioritize peace of mind, and build flexibility into your plans because future you is an unknown quantity.
Yeah. And, Housel brings all this home really effectively in one of the final chapters where he talks about his own finances.
The personal confessions. Always interesting to see if experts practice what they preach.
Definitely. And his ultimate goal with money boils down to one word: independence.
Freedom.
Yeah. The freedom to do what you want, when you want, with whom you want. He says he learned this from watching his dad.
How so?
His dad became a doctor later in life, saved diligently, lived way below his means, and eventually was able to quit a high-stress ER job he disliked, just to have control over his time. That made a huge impression on Housel.
So Housel and his wife adopted a similar approach.
Pretty much. Their big rule was, don't let your lifestyle inflate just because your income does. They kept things simple, even as they earned more, which allowed them to save a very high percentage of their income and achieve that independence much sooner.
And he shares some specific choices that might surprise people, right? Choices that aren't purely rational.
Absolutely. Confession number one.
Yeah.
He paid off his house entirely, even though his mortgage rate was super low.
Which financial advisors would probably advise against.
Oh, yeah. He says people called it his worst financial decision.
Wow.
But for him, the psychological benefit, the peace of mind from being totally debt-free, that was the right emotional decision. That was reasonable for him.
Okay, what else?
Confession two, they keep a pretty significant chunk of their savings, maybe around 20% cash, just sitting there.
Again, not something most advisors would recommend, cash drag.
Right. But for Housel, Cash provides oxygen for their lifestyle. It's the ultimate buffer. It means if there's an emergency or a job loss or just a big expense, they don't have to panic and sell investments, potentially at a terrible time. He quotes Charlie Munger. The first rule of compounding is to never interrupt it unnecessarily. Cash helps avoid those interruptions.
Makes sense, viewed through that lens. And his investments. Anything fancy?
Confession 3, nope, dead simple. Mostly low-cost index funds, both U.S. and international. He respects people who try to pick stocks or time the market, but he feels it's not worth the extra stress or risk for him. He's focused more on avoiding big mistakes than chasing maximum possible returns.
So his whole approach reflects the book's themes. Simplicity, patience, avoiding stupid mistakes, valuing peace of mind and independence above all else.
Exactly. Living simply, saving a lot, investing consistently, being optimistic but prepared for things to go wrong. Nothing flashy, just steady progress towards what he values most.
It really underscores that core message. Money is deeply personal. It's not about finding the one right answer that works for everyone.
No, it's about figuring out what feels right and works sustainably for you, aligns with your goals, your temperament, your definition of a life well lived. For Housel, that's independence and peace of mind, even if it doesn't look perfect on a spreadsheet.
So wrapping up this deep dive into the psychology of money, it really hits home that our relationship with money it's complicated. It's messy, personal, emotional.
It really is.
Yeah.
And maybe the biggest takeaway is that there's no single correct way to do things. There's just finding your way.
A way that acknowledges our biases, our histories, our emotions.
Right. Mastering money, as Housel shows, isn't really about complex formulas or trying to get rich quick. It's much more about understanding human behavior, starting with your own.
Remembering those key lessons. Stay humble when things go well. Be forgiving when they don't. Understand the power of what you don't spend.
Recognize that time is probably your biggest asset. Build in that room for error, always. Buy yourself time and options, not just stuff.
Save for the unknown. Prioritize being reasonable over being perfectly rational if it brings you peace.
And crucially, expect yourself to change and plan for that flexibility.
So maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. As you think about your own financial life, what hidden fees, stress, complexity, lack of sleep are you truly willing to pay for financial freedom? And maybe more importantly, what stories are you telling yourself about money that might be holding you back from achieving your own unique definition of enough?
Yeah, great questions to ponder. Continue exploring that relationship with money, not just as numbers, but as a powerful tool to shape a life lived truly on your own terms with freedom and hopefully a good measure of peace of mind.